we're live. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Long time coming.
Absolutely. No, I'm really excited to be here. So has been a little while coming, but it's nice.
I was looking at your notes around just a bit on your background, and you've hit now a decade with working in the buyer's agent sector, right?
Yeah, almost a decade, Ben. So this coming March will be 10 years, which is very, very exciting. I've really, really been enjoying my time in the buyer space. So yeah, no, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled, but yeah, it's a nice milestone to reach 10 years helping buyers and working on that side of the fence. So a lot has been learned and in that time.
When did you start your new business or your current business?
Yeah, so I actually started Ari Agency in 2020. And I think it was, I guess, the decision for me to make that move and do that was probably right when sort of COVID hit. And I thought that, look, there was uncertain times for I think a lot of people in that time frame. And I guess it gave me the courage to go out and back myself in the work that I do. And it's been a brilliant 3 years. So I'm super pumped to have hit 3 years in business now. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to achieve in that time. So
very brave of you. Like, obviously, you've got a lot of experience in the industry, obviously within the buyer's agent space, because I know you worked, I think, for around 6.5 years in the buyer's agent sector prior to you starting your current business. However, I mean, you did start that would have been COVID, right? 2020?
Yeah. I think it was June. Well, I started the business like 1st of July, 2020.
So you effectively started your business in, you could say, challenging times.
Yeah.
And you've rode that wave very well from what it looks like. So were you expecting it to be really rocky, or did you have an expectation?
I would say that, look, I didn't know what to expect, I think is fair to say. And I think with the uncertainty that sort of COVID brought to everyone's life, I just sort of thought, well, things can't really get any more rocky than they are. And I just sort of thought, well, look, at the moment, like, it was a really good time for me to go out and sort of back myself in the work that I do. I guess there was an element of fear in that because I didn't know how that was going to be received in the industry. And I wasn't too sure like what sort of support I would get, but I actually found that I ended up getting a lot of support from, local agents in the space that I work in the North Shore that I work in. And they weren't the sort of agents who had supported my business in the past. So it was really nice going out on my own and then having quite a few people saying, look, hey, well, we're so proud of what you're doing. It's a really exciting time for you. And then wanting to support me by, mentioning my business to clients of theirs and having me help out their clients with regards to buying.
Yeah, nice. How have you enjoyed running your own business?
Challenging, a lot of fun. I think, look, at the beginning, it was much easier when it was just me, I've got to say. I definitely enjoy running the business, and I find that, we're at a point now where we're starting to get busier and I'm sort of introducing new people into my workspace to work alongside me. And that becomes challenging because, when you're working on your own, you're so used to what you do, it's much easier to manage. When you start adding other elements to it, it gets busier and you've just got a lot more hats to wear. So I've found like having to wear multiple different hats a bit of a challenge, but it's a challenge that I like as well. I just think as we grow and expand, it's finding time to sort of do it all and get it done in such a way that, we don't drop the ball on anything. So yeah, I think elements of it are challenging, but it's always exciting. Like, it's really nice building your own thing. And, I have a lot of passion into everything that I do. So being able to put my spin on things and do things in my way, it's a really nice, I really enjoy it, I've got to say.
Real estate's obviously, like you would know, it's a tough grind working on the buy side to sell. I guess anywhere in real estate, it's hard work. You've been in the industry for 24 years now, and you've worked in different parts. Like, where did you start?
So I left school when I was 17 and I went straight into real estate and I started on reception. So I did my Cert 4 in business admin and I finished it up with my certificate of registration back in 1999. So it was a long time ago. And since then, I've dabbled in all sort of aspects of real estate. I've done a little bit of property management. I've done a little bit on the sales side. I've done commercial, residential. I finished up in sort of projects before I hit the buying side. So I've kind of had my hand in all sort of pots, which is great because it sort of gives me a very well-rounded grasp into the real estate industry. So just having that knowledge and getting to meet people in all of those different areas, really good people in real estate stay in the industry for a long time. And you end up, networking with them years down the track. And so it's nice to have those connections that you can then utilize, with buyers that we're working with now, which has been very, very, very good for us and for our business as well. So
lovely. So what was the deciding, I guess, why did you move from projects into then the buyer's agency space?
Good question. I think at the time, I had dealt with buyer's agents a little bit in terms of selling to them off the plan and stuff like that. I didn't set out necessarily to become a buyer's agent. It wasn't really forefront of my mind. And I think at the time I was actually looking for a sales, and I ended up speaking to a recruiter who convinced me to go and have coffee with him. And so that really sort of threw a spanner in the works, because I think I probably sat on the fence for maybe a good 3 or 4 weeks before sort of making any decisions. But when I actually ended up going down and meeting the team at Cohen Handler, I felt like it was a really good fit and the sort of culture that I wanted to be involved in. And I decided to leap forward with it. And yeah, looking back 10 years now, and I haven't looked back. So I've obviously been enjoying it.
Thank you, the recruiter. I guess, have you reconnected with that recruiter?
Oh, no, actually I should. We do follow each other on social media. So we do keep it in touch with what each other's doing, but not really directly. But I should actually reach out and say thank you. Show my appreciation and thanks. It's been a great decade.
Yeah, I mean, recruitment's interesting, right? Like here, this recruiter was, pitching you into this new style of, I guess, sector within real estate, which was probably quite foreign to you. Like, did you have reservations? Like, did you believe in the buyer's agent concept when you were being pitched on it?
I did not believe in it. Like, I don't think I really had any sort of preconceptions of what it might be. And for me, I was really just hungry to get out there and do my own sort of business and work with clients directly. And there wasn't really a failure option for me. It was like, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to be a buyer's agent. I'm going to be the best buyer's agent in the north that there is. So, and that's still my vision to today. So, I guess I did believe in it because, I did. Here I am, and I'm doing it. So,
and you're doing very well. So when you started 10 years ago, I'm assuming it was around 2013, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
Okay, let's just call it 2013. Like, it was still very young then. I remember, obviously, we were working together, but it was still a very fresh concept.
100%.
Like, it must be chalk and cheese. Like, I'm not a buyer's agent now, but I guess for you sitting in front of potential clients back then to now, it must be completely different conversations, right? Or not?
Yeah, no, different conversations. I think back then, like every buyer that we would sort of meet, a lot of them, most buyers hadn't heard of buyer's agents. So it was very much an education. So you would meet people. It was a very new concept to them. But obviously, I think some people had an idea of what it might be. But buyer's agency in Australia was very, very new, as you know. And it was more about educating buyers that, hey, there is this service available. This is what we can do, and this is how we can help you. Nowadays, we meet buyers, and buyers come to us wanting to use a buyer's agent, or they're having conversations who might be able to help them. And then they are sort of talking to 2 or 3 different buyer's agents before making a decision, which was not really the case 10 years ago. You'd almost speak to somebody and they weren't shopping around as much as they are these days, but it's much more like the sales space where you find that the client is speaking to a couple of people. So you need to really convey your level of expertise and your point of difference to those buyers when you're dealing with them and when you first meet them.
I mean, you've got to talk about point of difference. I mean, you've been in the industry for 24 years. You worked in the buyer's agent space, 9.5 years. Um,
Yep.
I guess the people that you're sitting in front of, like, what does the typical client look like to you, for your firm?
Yeah. So I think, look, a lot of buyers agents, their typical client or their ideal client is probably a little bit different. For me, my ideal client or my typical client tends to be either your first home buyers or your families looking to upsize and downsize. And I think, look, that comes with a little bit, probably because I have a young family myself. And I've been in the same space, when couples and they're moving out of their apartment into the first family home, or they're in the small family home and they want to upsize into the next thing. And for a lot of my clients, we find a common rapport and we get along quite well. And I really sort of grasp what they need out of a place. So that's my ideal client. Some of my colleagues would probably have slightly different ideal clients. I know one of my colleagues likes to he likes the investment side of things a lot more, whereas I'm definitely more along the primary residence. The facts and like the numbers is not really my forte. I really like the emotion of it. And I really like finding like that dream home for a family. And, especially when people have been in the market for quite some time and they've been unable to do it themselves, like it's such a rewarding role to be able to find that home and then make it happen for them. So I really enjoy it.
And so what price range is there like a type of price range that you're typically working in with your clients?
Look, it varies. We just bought a little property actually for a client, which was just under 800,000. But then, we sort of work with clients right up to about 10 million. I would say our average price point probably sits around the 3 states, which I think is a pretty common price point for people looking on the North Shore. I think a lot of families that are looking to get into that next thing sit within the sort of $2.5 to $3 million space. So that's an area that I know very well. It's an area that I'm very, very comfortable with. But yeah, no, look, it's definitely a very competitive price range in the market as well.
And that's why I'm assuming they engage you.
Yes. We tend to find that a lot of our clients have been looking for a little while before they engage us. And often they do miss out a few times and they feel that there's that need for them to get in. Or it is so hard because you've got so many families that are rocking up, to the auctions and bidding. And I think that a lot of people get intimidated by the process and they sometimes choose not to chase the ones that they should be chasing, or they go after ones that sort of the wrong kind of property. So when they do come to us, it's interesting for us to look at their journey to date and sort of see where they are and where they might be sort of struggling with their property search, because identifying those sort of key areas where they could be improving or having a bit more success is really critical to their success of buying.
Makes sense. And you said earlier around that client typically comes and sees you when they've been looking for a period of time. Like, what is that, like you could say, typical time frame that people really knock on your door and start saying, hey, we need help?
Probably anywhere from about 6 months, to be honest with you. Even that can be a little bit long for people. I think that some people start getting fatigued after that first, 3 months of searching when their pre-approval runs out. If they haven't found anything in that space, they then start considering their other options. But I would say probably about 6 months. I think people tend to try and give it a bit more time. But we've worked with a few clients lately who have been in the market for, up to 18 months before engaging us. And we've managed to turn around their buying time frame very quickly. I had one client that just settled not long ago. They actually bought the first property we showed them after looking for 18 months.
Wow.
And yeah. I actually thought it would be extremely difficult, to be honest with you. I thought, okay, I've got my work cut out for me. They've been looking for a long time. They're probably quite picky on what they want. But I think, just understanding the buyer mentality as well can sometimes see you getting to the negotiation table quite quickly. So they're absolutely thrilled. But yeah, so it can be quite quick once engaging us. But we always say to our clients, have a bit of patience, because finding the right thing, it really does depend on what we can find. And, sometimes it means, being patient till we find the right one. We don't want to end up buying a property just for the sake of it. We want to make sure it's a good long-term.
That client that you bought the first property that had been looking, I think, for 18 months?
Yep.
That's going to be a powerful testimonial.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, definitely. I don't even think they were ready for it, to be honest. We actually, it was an interesting scenario because they had a max budget of 2.1 and the agent was guiding 2.1 through the campaign. They would never have gone to see this property for themselves. And, just having the relationships that I do within the industry. And I sort of said to them, well, look, there's an opportunity. The buyer interest is a little bit less than that. We have a reasonable buffer if we go to auction. Vendors' expectations were always a little bit higher and probably higher than the market feedback. We went to auction and we watched it pass in at 2 million and my client said, should we not bid? We've got more money. And I said, no. I said, just trust me on this one. I said, we won't pay any more than that next week. And we bought it for 1.95 3 days later. So really nice outcome.
That's incredible.
Very powerful testimonial.
And just, I guess, expanding on that point where you said, hey, just, trust me on that one. We're going to basically pay less just by waiting. I mean, that is why people engage buyers agents, right? Like you guys have a specific level of knowledge, intelligence around what not to do, what to do. And I guess leading to my question around now off markets, that gets thrown around a lot, right? The word off market. Do you still find you have a lot of potential clients that come to see you, to engage with you, and they're saying, hey, Aria, all I want is off markets? Like, are you still dealing with that at all?
Yeah, all the time, Ben. And to be honest with you, it's probably the bane of my existence. I guess I've got to say that I don't like the fact that a lot of buyers agents will just spruik the off markets. I think that it's a great value add that we have. But I often think that if somebody only wants to buy off market, I start wondering where they're going wrong with on market stock, because we know that good properties come to market. And I'll always say to my clients, look, off markets are great. We definitely have access to those. We'll make sure that we have access to everything. But it's not just about those off-market properties. It's about getting the best opportunity for the client, whether that be on-market, off-market, pre-market. It doesn't really matter which way that it comes to us. It's about finding the right opportunity for the client and then making sure that we have the best chance at success for that client once we find that right property. But, look, off-markets can sometimes we just find the right thing and it is a great off-market opportunity. There's little competition on it, which is always the benefit for the client. But equally, if we can find the right property at the right price, and it might be a property on market that's been overpitched on price, that we can buy for less, then that's also a really good outcome for our clients, much like the one that we passed at auction on.
Yeah, you made a good point earlier around, you said, I'm paraphrasing here, like when someone comes to you around wanting off markets, like where's it going wrong? Like you're right, like if someone is focused on off market, like they've clearly, you'd think, got a problem with buying what's on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's what I always say to people in meetings is, I always tell them, like, off markets are great, but let's look at why you're not able to buy on the market. You're not seeing the right stock. You're not, are you not getting the right intel to sort of have a competitive advantage to the competition? Are you not getting the right information from the agent? Are you just chasing the wrong property? I find that a lot of buyers can naturally just chase properties that are overpriced for them because they don't understand how sales agents work and how they pitch properties to the market and how they price things.
That's definitely a big mistake around them looking at the wrong properties. What's another mistake or a few mistakes that you see buyers are typically making out in the marketplace, whether they come to you or not to use your services? Like, where do you see buyers are going wrong?
Pricing is definitely a big one. I think just understanding value from price points, from how an agent lists the property. I think a key critical thing as well is that each agent negotiates quite differently and the way that they market a property is very, very different. So having worked in the industry for a long time and dealing with agents week in and week out, we sort of get a really good sense do these agents typically pitch a little bit lower? What is their negotiation strategy? How do they like to deal with buyers? And what's going to be the best chance at us being successful when we're up against them? So we really sort of, I think, understanding the negotiation tactics of agents and the different styles that they have. So depending on an agent's style, it might be better to take a different approach with them as a buyer. I just know that sometimes when I have properties that certain agents list, I will take a different approach depending on their personal selling style. But I find that a lot of buyers can often make mistakes with regards to the type of property that they're looking at. They're not always open-minded to some of the options around, that could be quite beneficial to them. Um, I think that sometimes they can actually be quite closed to the due diligence, and, a lot of things, like they might just sort of put things in the too hard basket straight away without going, actually, there could be a really good opportunity for us here. If only we were to, look at the right sort of information that we need, and, there could be, a few things that we can do to sort of leverage our position and get into a slightly better property. So buyers often, and I've got a buyer at the moment who's like this, sometimes they put their own limitations on themselves. And I find that can be a huge hindrance, where they'll say, look, that price point is already X, it's going to go over our budget. But rather than, having that sort of hustle and ability to sort of follow it through and see if there's an opportunity there, they just rule themselves out hard and fast, and they won't chase it because they think it's too hard. But sometimes, that's where you get the really good opportunities, is when you go for those properties that are almost too good for us, like they're almost out of budget for us, and they're the ones we sometimes chase, which is why I'll sit down with clients and I'll say, you know what, we may miss out on one or two properties before getting to the right thing. And that's okay, because, we're chasing that property that's over our budget. We're chasing that property that's better than what you think you're going to be able to buy yourself. And that just means that we've got to be, we've got to have a little bit of, we've just got to have, a little bit of sass about us in the market to try and get to the right outcome for our clients.
You made a great point earlier about, one of the mistakes a buyer could make is, potentially buying the wrong property. And I think that's a really important point, because I think a lot of buyers, whilst they may think they bought the right property, they didn't really see everything that was available, and it may not be the right property compared to what they could have bought.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it just comes with experience in the market as well, Ben, because I think that, look, a lot of people have experience with buying and selling, but when you don't do it day in and day out, sometimes, you don't see everything that's out there, or you don't know what all the options are. And it's very easy just to take, to go one way and without looking the other, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think opening up all those opportunities for buyers is really important. And it's what gets us the most success is, we don't sort of discount anything. Like, we leave everything open for discussion and see where those opportunities lie.
Do you think buyers are quite surprised when they engage with you, and obviously you've been around for a long time and you've got very good real estate agent relationships. Like, do you think they're quite surprised around the strength of what a real estate agent relationship actually really does look like when you're a buyer's agent like you? Do you think they notice that?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Because I think some of the information that we get is always a little bit different to what, what a real estate agent is going to tell an ordinary buyer in the market. So to give you an example, if an agent's got a campaign where they may have overpitched the price and it's not going so well, they're not going to call up every buyer that's come through that property and say, hey, I've got no interest, or the interest isn't where I thought it was going to be. There's a really good opportunity to buy this property, at a much lower sort of price point. But they will call back the serious buyers, and those serious buyers are typically the buyer's agents. They're the ones with qualified clients who the agent knows that if it does make sense to them, then they've got a deal on the table. At least we will come to the party with something that could be tangible for them. But yeah, that's not the conversation that they're having with all the buyers, so that there are people that are definitely sort of missing out at that time.
Do you see yourself during the client management process as a bit of a counselor, because there's so much emotion going on? Like you mentioned earlier that you might tell a client, we may miss out on 2 properties, right? And let's just say you do miss out on those 2 properties. It is an emotional roller coaster. Do you find yourself having to really steer them in certain directions to keep them on track and keep them positive? And
yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, and it really depends on where they're at with the journey as well. Like, sometimes we will have clients that will come to us fresh after getting a pre-approval, and they just want to get the process started. They don't have a lot of knowledge about what's going on in the market for their space. But then we've got other buyers who have been in the market for a really long time, and maybe they just don't have the best process, but they'll come to us and then they'll be sending us properties, or, they'll be sort of suggesting sort of things, and we have to almost sort of pull back and, start to educate them as well and sort of say, hey, actually, look, this one's over price point. You're not going to be able to afford this. Let's not waste time on that. And kind of get them into the space that they need to be successful. One of my recent clients, there was probably 2 or 3 properties that we walked away from at the very beginning of the campaign that they would have gone through full due diligence and they probably would have attended auctions. And I just said to them straight up, it's over your price point. Like, we're not going to waste time. And each and every opportunity was. So we kind of weed out, all of the noise, and we sort of start really honing in and focusing on, the properties that do make sense. One of my clients, who I bought a couple of properties for, actually, when they came to buy their recent primary residence, they said, oh, Aria, we're looking at it, I'm looking at anywhere between 8 and 11 properties each Saturday. And I was super proud of that. And I just thought, in my mind, I was thinking, I can't think of anything worse. So once we did start the process, although they enjoyed getting out there and looking at those properties and it was a great exercise for them, we were really only showing them 2 or 3 properties every week that were actual opportunities and suitable for them. So it's just really about where you spend your time and what you focus on. And I think we become really good at focusing on the right things. So we network quite quickly, and we know how to sort of work out straight off the bat, is this going to be a good opportunity for us? Should we spend our time here, or should we just move on because, the information that we're getting is not going to be the right opportunity for us?
Last question before we start to wrap up. Do you think buyers are aware, whether they use it, let's say that buyers who are not using buyers agents, do you think they're aware, a lot of the time, how much they're getting screwed by real estate agents? How much of a savage a lot of these real estate agents really are? Do you think they understand that?
No, I don't think they do. And I think it's a really good question. And I think the evidence of that is the amount of buyers that you see just show up to an auction and they think that's the only way that they can buy a property. And I often say, it really depends on the opportunity. But a lot of the times, if you can get to a fair and reasonable outcome before auction, you're already ahead of the game, because it's often that when it gets to auction and you've got a couple of people who are highly emotional, they're bidding the price up and it just can get out of hand. And I think that just shows me a lack of experience in the buyers if their only way of securing a property is actually just attending all the auctions. But we see it all the time. It's how buyers operate. So it's quite scary.
It's a good point. Also, those buyers who are turning up to auctions where it's just completely out of their price range and they shouldn't even be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, look, I think that there is a lot that buyers can do to get on the front foot. And I just don't think that a lot of people think that they're an expert, but they don't all have the knowledge to really sort of get to where they need to be or to close the right deals that come along.
Love it. Ari, it's been awesome to connect. Congrats on all your success. You're crushing it, and all the best for FY24.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Bye.